here.
Oh, you're the, oh, okay, all right. Well, this is Uber
Drew
edition.
is in his chairman. I think.
Yeah, no, he told us to go.
Your
chair. Before he
All
gets
right.
on.
So,
Okay, Mr. Chairman, you are now live on YouTube. You can proceed.
thank you, Rhiannon. So on your Steinmetz Guru,
Mic on?
Just 1 minute,
It
Mr.
is.
Chairman, let's tell our audience that could be watching. We are on Joint Conference Committee on House Bill 150, State Budgeting and Expenditure Authority. Representative Larson.
thank you, Senator Steinmetz, if I can. Yeah, I was sitting on the ground. So for those folks that might be watching this bill, when it left the House, went over to the Senate, they amended it with some very good amendments. And in the process of me getting ready for the concurrence in the House, was sitting down with the LSO attorney to see how the amendments tracked into the bill. And in doing so, he found some technical errors that he tried to figure out a way around, and he says, now the best thing to do is not concur, have a conference committee, then let me fix them. And so I don't have it in the report, but if we could refer to your amendments, I can share with you what they are. And then I think Mr. Groover may have one more that he wants to share with you. But if you have your House Bill 150, and if you look up the amendments and go to the second reading amendment number 1, tell me when you're there and I'll share with you what we found. Yeah, you can. I just don't know where it's at. Okay, so on that section there where it says to make changes, it's on line 14 of the amendment where it says page 8, line 3. If you'll come to it says after types, insert comma and federal funds as provided under paragraph C, should be a B. Okay, and then the following line says, and subsection, which should be subsections, plural, G and Q. So after G, we need to make subsections plural. And after G, we're going to insert and Q. And then if we could go to the Perkins Scott amendment, that's third reading amendment number 1. Tell me when you're there, Ocean, if you would. Okay, if you come down on that amendment under the big A, and it's on line 32, in that it says, if so, the governor's office shall request legislative action. He says that language is probably a little harsh between the legislature telling the governor what to do. And so he was suggesting that we replace request legislative action to proceed. We'll just take those 3 words out, put proceed in there as provided in 92206B.
We did that. We did that one of our amendments.
Well, it wasn't in the report. And so if you've already done it, then this is even easier, isn't it? Here's what we get. Okay.
Just a moment. I'll try to find that. That was third reading amendment.
Hi, Dave. So we have Dave Groover with LSO with us. In Dave, they thought they had changed that language to on this Perkins Scott amendment to use the word proceed. So I think at the end of the day, they're happy with that too.
Yeah, we must not.
It must have come out.
We got a lot of them.
So Mr. Groover, what I explained to them was the second reading amendment number 1, the changing of C to B, and then adding on the next line, making subsections plural. After G, adding language and Q. And then the adding the word proceed. Now, there may have been a couple that I've missed, so if we could turn over to you to walk us through any additional changes that you found that we need to do.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure how you want me to proceed. What I have, and probably I think the easiest thing to do is give you a draft conference committee report that just sticks purely to technical changes.
For this meeting.
And then, Mr. Chairman, after, if you want me to, I can walk through that. And after we walk through that, I can provide you with a more expanded conference committee report. Okay, Mr. Chairman, if you have the proposed conference committee report, what you do is adopt the Steinmetz Committee of the Whole Amendment, and that basically splits the G and adds the dollar amount and the taxing authority requirement or provision. And then you have the Perkins third reading amendment, which basically married the Scott's second reading maintenance of effort provisions with the Steinmetz Committee of the Whole provision. And then what you do is delete the Steinmetz second and the Scott second. Steinmetz was partially deleted by Scott's, and then Scott's second reading was mostly deleted by the Perkins third reading amendment. But there are some provisions that you have to grab and put back in. And that's what the further engrossed as follows.
Chairman Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so, David, I mean, when we say deleting, really, in a lot of respects, it's a delete and further amend. We're deleting it, we're bringing a lot of it back and just amending it so it meshes together.
Absolutely. If it were the budget committee report, that's exactly what it would say. And I don't really know why we do it differently for joint conference, but we do. All right. Page 2, line 6, pure technical. This is a technical change to the Steinmetz second reading amendment, and it really just deals with placement. If you look at your bill, if you have it, it says as of the first day of each fiscal year, and the amendment put in beginning July 1st, 2021. Well, you only have one fiscal year that begins July 1st, 2021. So all we did was move in this committee report that beginning July 1st to the beginning of the sentence. Page 3, line 14, line 15, and line 16, all from our reinsertions of the Scott second reading amendment. And then the substance of that amendment, Mr. Chairman, is page 7 after line 16. And that provision that's inserted provides that the auditor won't draw a warrant if the expenditure, and Scott's language was, or disbursement is in violation of the new subsection Q or any other violation of law. And the importance of adding disbursement was there's some question about whether expenditures captured disbursements. And so there were concerns about pass-throughs going right through the agency and then just being dispersed, not really being spent by the agency. So that's why the Senate added that, Mr. Chairman. On page 7, line 18, there's a technical addition, and this is where we just add the provisions are subject to G and Q. Q is a new provision that you added in the Senate. G was already in the bill. That's the 4-part provision. Page 8, line 3, Mr. Chairman. And this was a technical one that we caught last night. The Steinmetz second reading amendment said under paragraph C3, and it really should be under B3. And since you're in B, you just say under paragraph 3 of this subsection. And then we went ahead and added subsections. You had G in the amendment, but we added Q too, just so we're consistent and there's no question about whether there's some different intent. On page 10, line 2, same thing, pure technical cleanup. We add Q to subsection G. So,
Dave,
yes, sir.
Dave, if we could go back to that page 8, line 3 piece where we put in subsection G. I thought that was a subsection B as in boy. It was G.
Mr. Chairman, it was, if you look on it, it says paragraph 3. The amendment said paragraph C3, and it's really B3. But since you're in subsection B, you don't say B3, you just say the paragraph 3 of this subsection.
Okay, okay, got it.
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Stiff.
Mr. Groover, to back up just a moment, one of the very first changes on your technical corrections is page 2, line 6.
Yes.
You're deleting the as, and then it inserts beginning July 1, 2021, comma, as. And my question is, do you need that word as? Couldn't, it seems like it would flow grammatically better if you just said beginning July 1, 2021, there is appropriated.
At some point, you're going to have to say as of the first day of each year because it's an annual appropriation, Representative, Mr. Chairman. Now, you could say, we could rearrange it and say beginning July 1st, blah, blah, blah.
So
There's
Sure.
appropriate $10 million. But you still have to say as of the first day of each year, fiscal year at some point.
And so, Mr. Chairman, I apologize. Mr. Groover, so do you mind just reading it? Like the first 15 words, how it reads as a completely amended?
It would, as it's proposed to be amended, it would say, beginning July 1st, 2021, comma, as of the first day of each fiscal year, comma, there is appropriated $10 million. Okay.
Okay, yep. You two attorneys need to.
I'm not on my,
Chairman. Go ahead,
chairman
Mr.
and
Groover.
my businesswoman.
I know.
All right, Mr. Chairman, on page 12, line 12, and this is an important amendment. What happened was when the Senate adopted the Steinmetz Amendment, providing for a $10 million determination or an impact on taxing, the Senate provided that the governor's exception for that would apply for public safety and for saving potential loss of federal dollars but for taxing only safety. When the Perkins and third reading amendment came in, because we included maintenance of effort requirements in the new A, the intent was that the public safety applies to both, but the savings of federal funds applies to neither. And that's how the substance of those provisions read, Mr. Chairman. But this is a conforming amendment to earlier in the bill where it says if the determination under subparagraph 4B, and it should be 4A or B is made, then the potential loss of federal funds is not an excuse for the governor not to take the pause.
Okay, good.
And then, Mr. Chairman, page 14, lines 1 through 11 is a reinsertion of the Steinmetz second reading amendment, which deleted you can't use the funds for raises or other compensation.
Right.
And then page 21, line 10 is the Steinmetz second reading amendment, making the whole act effective immediately instead of July 1st. Now, Mr. Chairman, those are the technical changes that you need and that you were discussed. I have, if you want to look at it, a couple other technical changes that you could make, but they were not subject of an amendment. They should have been subject, Representative Perkins, to yours. Instead of requesting legislative action, that didn't make it into your amendment because it showed up 3 other places in the bill. And what your language does is just follow what was already in the bill. Yeah, my way of thinking, it really doesn't make any difference other than it doesn't look as untoward, I guess you could say. Because in either event, the governor is notifying the legislature and the JC has to act, and then the leadership has to act. And when the bill was originally drafted, I put in and request legislative action because that's really what he's doing. But if folks are offended by that, you could take that language out and just say, and proceed as provided in that subsection.
This would
and-
just mirror, well, the one place that we could do it.
If you're going to do it in one place, you should do it in the two others, so 3 places total. And I have that amendment that does that, Mr. Chairman, if you want to look at it.
I just should have the bill, I just should have the bill come out of here as clean as possible, but if it's a problem procedurally, then give me direction. I don't know how you feel.
You would. David can, he knows.
Well, Mr. Chairman, technically, the first committee is limited to amendments and positions between the amendments and technical cleanups to the amendments. This actually goes a little bit beyond that because the places in the bill were never addressed by an amendment. Your choices are just to go ahead and do it, and if no one objects, that's fine. It's done, and there's no constitutional issue. The other choice would be to report back that the first committee couldn't reach agreement, ask for immediate appointment of a second committee, and then you can do it without anyone questioning anything.
So Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman.
Yes.
So I understood what you just said and generally agree with it, but I would also submit that it's also practical to say that ultimately it's a technical correction to an amendment. Should have, so it's a technical correction to an existing amendment, which then creates a different argument that, maybe it is in between the positions.
Mr. Chairman, we actually, I shouldn't say we, the legislature broadened your conference committee's report authority, first one, to clean up minor language changes, as long as you don't change the substance.
Mhm.
And if I were a legislator and arguing, I would argue just what Senator Perkins said, that you had an amendment that included this language. It's a technical change to that amendment and a conforming change to the rest of the bill to do so.
Good.
For new members.
Colleagues, I think that this is important because Representative Andrews, this is his first conference committee. And so I want your thoughts. And do you understand what we just said?
Yes, I do understand. We're considering it all a technical change.
Yeah.
And we're going forward with both amendments.
And so if this were like a budget bill and we were arguing that they said $100 and we said $50, we'd have to meet somewhere in between, right? And that's what he was saying on the 2 amendments, that we're trying to meet someplace in between. But these are technical changes, and where we've already done it one, he brought to our attention that this is kind of wonky, maybe not between. You heard the good chairman of appropriations say, yes, but it's also a technical change, which he validated from what I heard. And we just want to make sure that you're comfortable with that.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Please.
Yeah, essentially, we're just bootstrap. I mean, what is a bootstrap? That it's a technical change to amendment that should have been. We're just correcting a technical change to an amendment. We're bootstrapping it back in because it really is an error. It's an oversight in one of the amendments. We're just correcting that oversight. That's all we're doing.
Okay.
Speaking of which.
It's cool. Look at this. 2 of the primary colors that
Mr. Chairman, it's highlighted yellow on the second page. And you can see it's made 3 places, once in the bill, 2 in each of the amendments.
Okay, Mr. Groover, what can we try again, please?
Okay, on page 2. All we're dealing with here are the highlighted provisions. Everything else I've already talked to you about. On page 11, lines 14 and 15, that's where in the bill, it was never amended. And that's where the original language came from. And then on page 13, lines 2, and we split that into 2 because both the Perkins Amendment and the Steinmetz Amendment drew from that language in the bill. And we delete request legislative action and insert proceed in all 3 of those places.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, how would you like to proceed?
Good.
I am too, and so do we just,
Move to concur on that.
Concur.
okay? That sounds good. So we just need to,
So moved.
we've come to an agreement. We just need to sign the report and then we'll move concurrence. And thank you, Mr. Gruber. We really appreciate you.
Sign both of them.
No, Mr. Chairman, what I'll do is incorporate what you have in your hand into the first document I went through. And you'll have one report to sign.
Then we'll get a signature.
You can sign it in the morning.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.